Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about B&G and what we think are the pros and the cons after we've been using it for 1,600 nautical miles. I'm Bryn.
And I'm Jade, and this is Talisman, a 28-foot Sultan stag. In case you're new to our channel, let me catch you up. We bought Talisman in 2019 and then left the UK in July 2021 with less than 200 nautical miles sailing experience. We crossed the Bay of Biscay and headed down towards the Mediterranean, and it's already been a huge adventure with so much more to come. We'd like to share our real and honest experiences with you that we gather from a life at sea. It's going to be a crazy ride. So hit subscribe and join our journey every Friday.
So first and foremost, for those of you that haven't watched some of our earlier videos about B&G and our package that we have on this boat, I'll just give you a very quick run through of what we have that's B&G on the boat. We have a Vulcan 9 chart plotter, multifunctional display. We have a Triton 2 display, which is this little one right here, also a multifunctional display. We have a WS320 wind instrument that's at the top of the mast, which is wireless as well, so that's pretty cool. We have a Airmar DST, I think it's an 800, but I'll double check and put it in the description, or I'll just put it here, whichever one it is. I think it's the 800, and that's a trijuicer. For a heading sensor, we have a ZG100, which is a heading sensor and GPS compass. And then we also have a B&G 3G radar. That's quite a mouthful, like saying it all in one go. So yeah, that's pretty much our system. We do have a Simrad tiller pilot, which was inherited with the boat, and we do also have AIS, which is not B&G, which was also inherited, and that is now incorporated into our system through the backbone. So yeah, there you go. That's a very quick overhaul of what system we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so the first thing we're going to really go through is the pros of this system and what we really like, and like the standout features that have been good for us over the last 1,600 odd nautical miles. So firstly, it is user friendly in some aspects, and I'll explain a little bit more about that when we go into the cons. But as a new user, someone coming into this sort of like technology, what you need to use is actually quite easy. So you can set up a route nice and easy, and it is, we want to do a route from here, navigate, new route. And it is like, this is what I liked over the Raymarine. The Raymarine wasn't quite the same as this. But you touch one spot, zoom out, and then let's say we want to go and anchor over here. Nice little spot over here. There we go, and it's done 2 waypoints. And then auto docking, entire route. And then it will create a route for us. So as you can see there, that was really easy. So I was really happy with this feature. And when looking at the route, every single time we use auto docking, we do actually go over the route ourselves just to make sure that it hasn't took us into any dangers. So far, it hasn't done that, so we've been really happy with the auto docking feature on this chart plotter. So the next thing, once you've got your route in, and obviously you've done all your research when you're looking at weather and stuff like that, is the sail steer. Now this is amazing. So you can have it comes on the Triton, but also you can have it overlaid on the chart plotter as well. It's got its own sail steer page, which is really useful. And essentially you can see the 2 different types here, but it gives you your tidal information, like the currents, the flow that's running under the boat, true wind speed and apparent wind speed, gives you your ley lines and information if you're sailing into the wind. You can also input the boat's information on how well it will sail into wind and things like that. If you put the polarities onto the chart plotter, it will actually use these with the sail steer to help you with those little, if you're racing, it's an amazing feature because it will help you get those extra few seconds. Hopefully, we're not racers though, we use it for cruising, but it does help us sail efficiently when we're trying to get from one place to the other. We used it a lot when we was coming across the Bay of Biscay, where it's a really long passage, and those extra little, trying to make things as efficient as possible, actually made a difference over 4 days. So yeah, the sail steer has got so much information. It really helps you out. Gives you a waypoint, heading to like where you're heading to, and just absolutely brilliant. One of the other amazing features that we actually used, it was on the Bay of Biscay crossing as well, and also when we went to Falmouth at the very beginning of our adventure, was weather routing, which you can use on B&G, and it is really good. So with the weather routing, you'll need a PredictWind subscription, and the one that allows you to do weather routing, which isn't cheap, but if you're doing a big crossing, it might be worthwhile for you. It was worthwhile for us, and then you can cancel the subscriptions after. So to do weather routing, you've got a route that's saved that you've already gone over and checked, and then you go to that route in your log, PredictWind, download. Now that'll take a little bit of time just while it's downloading, depends on the internet connection. It doesn't use a lot of data either when it's doing this, and if you want to see when it's coming through, if you go into the route, you'll see when those come through, when it's figured those out. And it will take a few minutes because it's trying to do all the smart stuff for you. So when we use this, it enabled us to essentially follow the best wind path when we were crossing Biscay, and also you can set it so that it doesn't put you in any dangers as such. Now obviously this is technology and you need to use common sense at the same time when sailing, but essentially we put it so that we didn't want to be sailing in anything over 25 knots of wind. We didn't want to be going out in anything that had bigger than 3 meter swells, and then it'll come back with all the information saying, well, this is the safest route if you want to avoid those things. But yeah, it worked for us extremely well. Okay, so now it's downloaded those, well, I say those 4 routes. What it will download is different weather models, and there's 4 weather models that PredictWind mostly uses, so it will download those ones. ECMWF, GFS, PWE, PWG. We're in Europe, so I'm just going to put on show, and this should be, there we go. So now it's showing all the routes. If I zoom in, they are all saying the same thing along here, and then as you get closer to where we want to go, or for this route at least, there's one that's saying this will be the fastest route, and then the other ones are generally the same. So when I look at weather routing, I tend to say if there's more of them saying that one is probably the one to go for, then I'll go with a consensus generally, but I do generally check the outlier as well just to make sure. And then you just pick which of these routes you want to use, and it's pretty simple. Routes, I either delete the ones I don't want to use and just leave the other one standing there, and then just follow that route as if it was the normal route that you put in. Again, with the weather routing, double check the route, make sure there's no dangers. I hope that was simple enough, but it is such a useful tool that it had to get a mention. So weather routing. What would you say are your favourite features, or what have you found really good about it?
Ooh, good question.
Jay behind the camera.
Jay behind the camera. I think the screen mirroring is quite good actually. We've used that quite a lot, like a lot more than I thought.
That's a good point actually. So with the screen mirroring, we pretty much have used this as a way to stay on checks, like if we're down below or one of us is sleeping or one of us is meant to be resting or whichever, you can just have a screen there, so that if something's playing on your mind you can just check it. And also on Anchor Watch as well, you can just screen mirror, so you can leave a track running and use that as an Anchor Watch. And to do this is relatively simple, but stay till a little bit later in the video when we're talking about cons.
It's going to make it to the con.
It's going to make it to the cons as well. But I'll just show you now how to connect. So it connects via Wi-Fi, and there's 2 different apps. You've got a B&G app, which is actually really good for if you want to create routes when you're at home and you're off the boat. You can do all your routes on the B&G app, and then you can sync it with your chart plotter, and it will sync all of those routes, and you just literally click go. So that is really quite clever. So you've got your maps on the B&G app. To screen mirror on here, let's see if it works. You go to My Devices, and it's got mirror and remote. I don't know whether this will show up, but essentially now it's showing the exact same thing as on the chart. So that's one way of doing it, and that's through the B&G app. So let's just get rid of that. The next way of doing it is there's a link app. So you go onto the link app, there you go, it's connected again. So it's not actually always that fast. This is normally the screen you would get, and when you get a green little connection sign, connect over the Wi-Fi in your Wi-Fi settings, and then remote control. And then yes, it will screen mirror. But stay tuned, we'll show you some of the cons with this screen mirroring as well. Now, some of the other massive pluses on this is it's able to do a radar overlay. So if you want to overlay radar, firstly you need to make sure you have radar.
Just about.
Radar options. So firstly in the settings you've got overlay, so you can actually overlay grid weather, sonar charts, or radar, and there's an SCL history, not sure what that is, but we've got radar selected. Radar options, transmit, so you can have it in standby or transmit. You can actually switch the radar off as well, and then go back to your chart, and there you go. This is what the radar looks like when it's transmitting. If we zoom in, and there's lots of different ways you can set this up. So if you go back into that settings, radar options, you can adjust gain, sea clutter, rain clutter, transparency, threshold, target expansion. So there's loads of different things you can do, fast scan. But the best way to learn about it, we found, is just to play with the settings. You can always reset them. And that enabled us to, when we were crossing Biscay, we used it to see big ships because it was so rough you wouldn't really see small targets, and also you're in a vast amount of water, so you want to see big ships. So we used it for that. But then coming down the Portuguese coast, we actually had it set really close into the boat because we wanted to see what was, when it was foggy, what was around us, and we were able to pick up fishing pots then. Not every single fishing pot will be picked up, but the ones on the Portuguese coast for us did. So that's a bit of information on the radar and how good that is as well. So another really cool feature that I personally really like, that I don't think that B&G really talks about enough, is when you create a track. So it's really cool to know we went from here and we drew a line. That's really, really cool. But what you can do with the tracks on this chart plotter, if you go into more options and you go to color tracks, you can actually change the way that that colour on the track is recorded. So for example, if you want to record the speed at the same time, you say the low speed is going to be yellow and the high speed is going to be red, and you set your low and high to whatever your boat preferences are, as are 3 knots and 9 knots, source, speed over ground. And then as it records, as your boat's moving through the water, if you're doing 3 knots, the track that you leave behind will be yellow. And then when the wind picks up and you're going a lot faster, it'll then turn more of a red. So you get like this adaptive show of how the performance was for that sail. And you can set that to wind speed, wind angles, velocity made good, and polar performances as well. So you can actually do a few different tracks, and I just think it's a little feature that is really handy on B&G. So another thing that we actually really like about this unit as well is the screen brightness, and how easy it is to adjust. So you've got the brightness, this is the max brightness right now, and then it goes all the way down, and you can see it dims them both. And we find that that's been really, really helpful. One of the little tricks that we've done to save power on Talisman, because we are only a small boat with 200 watts of solar, is if it's not absolute bright part of the day, we'll just turn the brightness down a little bit, and we find that that saves quite a bit of power. Another thing that we really, really like about the display is the night mode, and we use this obviously every single night that we sail in, and it's just nice and clear. Like, it's really, really, really useful. Other than this being a really, really cool piece of kit, it also has like alarms that you can set. So if you're at anchor or if you're on watch. We used it a few times in Biscay. We set the high wind alarm to 25 knots, and there was a few times where it did blow over 25 knots, and it kind of just gives us that, okay, you need to be switched on, let's just keep a handle on what's going on. And if, with the anchor alarm as well, the anchor alarm has it gone off?
Gone off a handful of times,
yeah, not very often. So yeah, when we set the anchor alarm, basically you drop anchor, click, and the alarms are really simple. You go into the settings, alarms, and then active. If you go into the settings, you can basically set all the different alarms you want to set. So you've got lots and lots, even like fuel and everything. It literally, you can set alarms for pretty much everything. That's been really handy. One of the other really good things about B&G is their support. So every time we've spoken to B&G, they've been extremely helpful. We've been able to get in touch with them pretty quickly over the phone. We've just gone on the website, contacted their support team, and they give us so much information, especially when we was first buying this system. So I would actually say that is a massive tick on why I would recommend B&G. The other one is the Facebook groups. There are, I'm in I think one of them, but I think there might be more for different regions. And the Facebook group that we're in is actually really helpful. People that are just supporting each other, lots of information. And that will lead us into some of the cons. The Facebook group has actually highlighted some of the things that why you might not think this is the right unit for you or the right system for you. But let's get more into that now. So the first con that we're going to talk about is the touch screen. Now, I'm saying it as a con because it's just not perfect. It works most of the time, and it will work for you, I think. It's worked even when it's rained and the screen's a little bit wet, but it's a little bit laggy and it doesn't register every single touch. That is why we're giving it a bit of a con. Another problem with the screen that we found is that it gets very hot. It's never not worked for us, but when you put your finger on it and the sun's been
burns your finger.
It burns your finger, yeah. So that is another thing that I'd just say is a bit of a con. It doesn't stay very cool, and it's a little bit laggy, and it doesn't register every touch. So that's the first con that we've found really.
I think a bit of a con is how hard it can be to learn for beginners who haven't really used these things before.
Do you know what?
Because I found it really difficult, to be honest, to use some parts of the functionality. Like the basics are okay, but you know, when you're looking at the radar and things like that, I found it a little complicated.
I would agree actually. Like, just to get the chart plotter working, to put a route in and to follow a route, easy. That's no problem. So if you just want a chart plotter that you can just dial in, get going, it will do exactly that. But I think when you're spending this amount of money on a chart plotter and they've got all these really cool features, you need to know how to use them. And that actually came with a learning curve. To learn how to use all the settings and to learn where everything is, there's like different settings menus. So like there's a settings menu here where you have all these settings. There's also a settings menu systems control here, and then you can get to the settings menu from that. It's not very easy to navigate, and I would say there's another even just here, so there's a settings menu there, and then there's also a settings menu for when you're on the chart plotter here, and you can go down the chart. But then if you click on this little bit, there's a different settings menu. And it's just like, you need to learn how to use all these things. So if you are spending this amount of money on it, I would actually recommend to learn it. We spent ages trying to figure all this stuff out. But yeah, I would say that is probably a little bit of a con, that there is so much on there. It's just not the most intuitive thing when you're just trying to pick it up and go. So another con that we're going to be talking about is, and this is more for this Vulcan unit rather than, I don't know so much about the Zeus's, but for this unit I would say is the memory and how it starts to slow down. It gets a bit lethargic if you start storing loads of routes on it. So every time we go out sailing, we we create our roots, as you saw earlier. Go on to roots, and there we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 roots logged. If we put even more and even more or big roots on there, we'd start to notice it gets a little bit slow and it gets quite laggy. So another con is we just have to delete all of our roots every time we've finished with them. We keep our tracks, but we delete the roots, and that's helped us keep this unit quite slick and smooth, and it loads quite fast now, considering like it still has stuff on it. But yeah, if you load it up with roots and you like to store everything, it can get a little bit slow, but I don't think this is an issue with any of the Zeus units. I think it is just more the Vulcan series from what I've seen. Another problem that we've found is sometimes things just don't work, and I'm not sure why. I'm sure this is probably user error, but I would also put it down to a B&G issue as well, because if I can't figure out how to start something or for something to start working, so the auto tracking was something that just didn't work for a long time. I'd got the auto tracking enabled, but then every time we'd leave the dock there would be no track line behind us, and then magically it just started working for us. So I didn't do anything. I'm sure there might have been something that I unchecked, but I don't know what it was. So yeah, but I wouldn't, that's definitely a con for me, if you can't just get things to work when you want them to work just by checking. And on that point, I would say overall, I would say it's probably the programming on these systems. They've got so many features and so much cool stuff, but it seems hard work, and I don't know whether everything's been thought out. For example, if I was in one setting and I pushed on, it would then mean that something else would switch off. And for me, I would like it to have like a little warning screen where it says, if you uncheck this, this will happen, but none of that happens. So that is unfortunately another con that I don't know what, unless they just basically went over all their programming and just like made it bulletproof, similar to a phone or a computer. These systems, obviously the programs that work on a chart plotter, it's probably not quite as advanced as a phone. But yeah, I'd say that is something that I would like to see a lot better. And last but no means least, one of my biggest pet peeves, and again I think it's probably down to the programmers, is the screen mirroring. Is really good that you can do that, but I'm gonna see if I can show you now what it looks like on a screen. And a lot of people have had problems with this on loads of different devices. Some are worse than others, but if I don't know whether you can see, you're gonna have to zoom in.
Yep.
It's actually very glitchy, so the lines don't align, and there's like red and orange lines that are off kilter, and there's like this little glitch going on the side. It's not very, so if I zoom in, which is quite cool, you can see it working over there, but if I zoom in here and we have a look at that, there we go. So there's a marker, a channel marker there. You can see that it's just off where there's a black channel marker and a red one next to it, and it's just like everything's shifted. And again, I think this is something that screen mirroring is like not a new technology. It's something that I think should be easy to do, but for some reason the B&G system, or B&G in general, just haven't nailed this. Yeah, so that's a big con for me. Even though we use it a lot and it is still usable, I just think it's ridiculous that it's not perfect. I don't know whether that's too much to ask, but these systems are very expensive and I think they should work as expected. So now it's time for the conclusion. Should you invest in B&G and throw all your hard-earned cash at them? I'm only joking, don't go and do that. I would say that the equipment we've got has been 90% amazing. It has done pretty much everything we wanted it to do, and it's only some of the things that it was a bit lackluster. So it's a hard one. I think for the amount of money you pay for these systems, they should be perfect. They really should. You shouldn't really be getting problems like the screen issues, and you shouldn't really be getting laggy touch screens at this sort of price point. So yeah, it's difficult to fully recommend, but equally the biggest issue is the opposition in the market aren't much different. They all have issues. We've been on other boats with other like Raymarine and Garmin, and we've spoke to other people, other owners with other systems, and they have similar problems. If they're not exactly the same problems as these, they still have other problems. So there is no perfect answer when you're looking at putting in a new system. What I would say is it has worked very well for us. What we needed this system for, it has done. It has ticked the boxes. There are workarounds for all the little things. So overall, I would buy B&G again. That's my honest opinion. And obviously all this stuff, we paid for all this, and we've had no contact with B&G in regards to making videos. And I would buy B&G again. I am pretty happy with how easy the system works overall, and how much we've learnt about it and got it like how we like it is quite personal. And the fact you get the sailing features, which you don't really get anywhere else, that works for us. So yeah, I hope this video has kind of answered some questions and kind of made you think about some of the things that it's not necessarily advertised everywhere, and it helps you in your choice of if you're looking to buy or upgrade your marine systems on board. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and if you have any questions about any of the things that we've spoke about in this video, just drop a comment down below and we'll get back to you and try and answer everything as best we can. All of our systems are going to be linked in the description below, just to kind of give you more information. If you want to just check it up and have a look at stat sheets, that's the sort of thing that I did before buying our system, so hopefully that'll help as well. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.